Joining me now is Rabbi Shmuley Boteach. Now, on yesterday's show, we covered how Whoopi Goldberg's latest shameful comments, again about the Holocaust, where she claims it had nothing to do with race and was an example of white-on-white crime. Despite apologising for similar comments earlier this year, Whoopi told the Sunday Times, "It doesn't change the fact that you could not tell a Jew on a street. You could find me. You couldn't find them." That was the point I was making. Rabbi, welcome to the program. Would you care to give Whoopi a history lesson?
Rita, thank you for being such a great friend of our community and our people. You always have been. But let me just be clear. Whoopi Goldberg, what she's really doing is playing a game of one-upmanship. Who has suffered more is what she's saying. We in the black community, we're identifiable. We can't really hide the color of our skin. We have suffered more. I've learned as a Jew, games of one-upmanship when it comes to human suffering and annihilation are never wise. The black community has suffered immeasurably, as has the Jewish community. The Holocaust was the world's greatest crime. Now, let's just be clear. Hitler saw the world in terms of race. His entire Weltanschauung, his worldview was all about race. The Jews were the lowest of the low, the race that needed to be exterminated. Slavs were somewhere in the middle. They only needed to be enslaved. Whoopi Goldberg, I don't think is an anti-Semite. I just think that she's playing a very strange game as to which people have suffered the most, but it trivializes the murder of 6 million people. And when she says, well, you couldn't really pick a Jew out on the street. Really, Whoopi? Don't you understand that the Nazis portrayed us with giant noses and hook noses and their Stürmer and all of this disgusting racist garbage had Jews who were unshaven and unkempt? And of course, how could you say you can't pick us out? Look at me. I have a beard and I have a yarmulke. And this is the year 2022. Do you really believe when I walk the streets of Sydney or New York or Los Angeles, you can't pick me out? That's why religious Hasidic Jews are being beaten up in the streets of New York because of the imbecility of what people like Whoopi are saying.
I do wonder why a woman who seems to be so ignorant, deliberately ignorant about Jewish history, appropriated a Jewish name, because her real name isn't Goldberg, is it?
Yeah, she was asked about that and she said that she feels that she is Jewish. I know Whoopi. I've been on The View with her many times. I still remember when Michael Jackson was alive, before she started with The View, I remember her calling me. She wanted to connect with Michael Jackson. She wanted to get to know Michael Jackson when I was his rabbi. I never would have suspected then that she would make remarks that are so insensitive. And let's just remember, Holocaust denial or Holocaust degradation is kind of the heart of anti-Semitism, because it really is saying that you Jews overplay the Holocaust. You make too much of it. And why? Maybe because you want to steal Palestinian land, you want to be the victim, maybe because you want to trivialize other people's suffering, maybe because you're trying to shake down the world for compensation. It goes to the heart of anti-Semitism. If 6 million Jews did not die, then anti-Semitism isn't something very scary. It's not something very frightening. But if anti-Semitism leads to gas chambers, then even somewhat insignificant comments like Whoopi Goldberg's are not insignificant at all. They're very, very dangerous.
And particularly given the fact that she apologised just earlier this year for similar comments, and it's apparent that that apology was completely meaningless. She did not mean it. She obviously had to say it just so she can go back on The View. Now, Rabbi, perhaps Whoopi Goldberg would benefit from reading your book, Kosher Hate. Tell me a little bit about this book.
Well, I think she would definitely benefit from even buying my book, Kosher Hate, because she clearly has no hatred of evil. It's a very simple idea. My Christian brothers and sisters say to me that Jesus did not believe in hate. He believed in turning the other cheek. He believed in loving your neighbor. And I always say to them, Jesus said to love your enemy. He never said to love God's enemy. Vladimir Putin, for example, he's not my enemy. I never met the guy. He's God's enemy. He slaughters children. He bombs hospitals and nurseries. Jesus would never have said to love him. Jesus would have said to hate the evil that he personifies, to combat it, resist it in order to stop it. That's what Hitler represented. when Whoopi Goldberg excuses or minimizes who Hitler was, this is white on white violence. We've seen this before. It's not real. It's not racial. She's really saying that Hitler was not as evil as he would appear. That this has happened before, when really Hitler, of course, was the personification of evil. Now, Winston Churchill said, "I hate Hitler." That's why he was prepared to fight him, even at the loss of empire, as opposed to Chamberlain, who was going to appease him. Abraham Lincoln said that he hated slavery. 700,000 Americans died so that slavery would end in the United States and that the Union would be preserved. But Lincoln thought that that was a price worth paying, because he spoke about his hatred for the institution. I fear today, Rita, that we don't have kosher hate. We excuse these terrible autocrats. The government of Iran is evil. If it's not evil to hang a 23-year-old protester from a crane as they did last week, then the word has no meaning. What's our response to the government supposed to be? Hatred, resist it. They shouldn't be funded. President Biden wants to give them $100 billion. If you really hated what they represented, you would never fund them. Xi Jinping, what he's doing to the Uyghurs, what he's doing to his own people. The COVID lockdowns have become a form of imprisonment. And finally, we're seeing some of the hatred, this kosher hatred towards the dictators who've had a really bad year. Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, the mullahs of Tehran. Let's hope there's more kosher hatred so there's more freedom in the world. Because you can never speak about loving victims unless you also hate the perpetrators of the evil that the horrors that are visited on them.
Now, before we let you go, it's worth noting that while homosexuality remains illegal in much of the Middle East, with harsh punishments for those found guilty, we've got Israel reportedly about to appoint a gay foreign minister. That is a big step forward for Middle East politics as far as diversity and inclusion goes.
Yeah, Rita, it's an interesting story you're commenting on. We don't know who will be the next foreign minister of Israel. I think it's going to be announced probably on Wednesday or Thursday. Interestingly, the two leading candidates are both people that I know and I would consider very close friends. Ron Dermer was Israel's ambassador to the United States. He's the most amazing man, he was my student president at Oxford University. But Amir Ohana, who's another leading contender, Israel's former police minister, is also a very dear friend. He's openly gay. He has 2 children from a surrogate, a right-wing member of the Likud party. Now, the reason why his candidacy is so significant is that Israel, the new Israeli government, which hasn't even been sworn in, you commented how the New York Times was already demonizing that government. We even have Jews here in the United States who are demonizing that government as if they don't want to see a democracy in Israel or they want to dismiss any party that's not to their liking. Don't you want to see the will of the people? But the point is, the great challenge of LGBT rights in the Middle East was completely overlooked by everyone who sent a soccer team to Qatar. Qatar has a capital penalty for homosexuality. And why did all the companies go there? Because Qatar is so flush with money, they just buy legitimacy in every which way they can, through the corruption of FIFA, through the corruption of many governments, through the corruption of many corporations. But Israel, which affirms these rights and has the second largest gay pride parade in the world, and it's in the Middle East in Tel Aviv, is being demonized, the new Netanyahu government, before it has even taken office, which just teaches you this horrible truism. When people say they hate Israel but they love Jews, they are dyed-in-the-wool liars and anti-Semites. Jews are not hated because of Israeli aggression. Rather, Israel is hated because of anti-Semitism. Israel, given the security threats that it faces, is the freest, most just and majestic country on earth. Would it be that every Arab would have the freedoms and the rights in Israel that they lack in Iran, that they lack in Syria, that they lack in Lebanon, that they lack in nearly every Islamic country? Would it be that they would have those freedoms? But the reason why people attack Israel is they don't care about Arab rights, and they don't care about Arab LGBTQ rights. They care about hating Jews. This is the world's oldest hatred. We see it repeated over and over again. And we kind of have to ask, when is this all going to stop? I mean, I'm raising 9 Jewish children. Must they be raised into a world where they know wherever they go, they're going to be hated? God Almighty, to the world that's listening, this has gone on 2,000 years. How much longer will it go on? Enough is enough.
Well said, Rabbi Shmuley, and you're so right. When you hold Israel to a different standard that you hold every other country, particularly in the Middle East, I think you're telling the world precisely what you think of the Jewish community. And no matter how you try to mask it by, well, I'm anti-Israel, I'm anti-Zionist, I'm not anti-Semitic, it's all the same. It's all the same, and we are very much awake to it. Rabbi Shmuley, always a pleasure to speak with you.